Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would you please join me in a moment of reflection from my chaplain, Reverend Hannah Boyd.
Good evening, everybody. I wonder if at this time of year there are two types of people. Those who are the organised ones who've got their lists with all the Christmas gifts on they need to buy and are taking the time to buy and to wrap, and those that are in total denial that Christmas is coming. And my teenage daughter is so worried that I'll buy her the wrong presents. She sent me 6 text messages full of links of everything she wants, all that blew her budget that I'd allocated her. But I also think there's another type of people. And there's some of us for whom this is a difficult time of year, for whatever reason, because of loss, grief, heartache, anger. And so there might be dread and fear that while everybody else is happy and smiling, inside we're not. And it's a season we don't want to go to. But actually for me, I think that's okay. We should be honest with ourselves about our life and our circumstances. Because as a Christian, I believe that God came as a baby in a messy stable to an unmarried teenage mother in the back end of beyond when nobody was there, into mess, into chaos. And he came as Emmanuel, God with us in mess and chaos. And being Emmanuel is all about being present with us in whatever we find ourselves in, wherever we might be. And so I wonder if I could invite you this season to not just think about buying gifts for people, but to offer people your presence, your time, your love, your care, your attention. Who can you be within this season where actually just your physical presence will be the best gift they ever have? Let's pray. Father God, we thank you that you came as Emmanuel, God with us, into mess and chaos. And in the mess and chaos of our lives and of this world, we invite you to encourage us to a different way of life this Christmas, to be physically present to those who need it most, to offer our time, our love, and our care and attention to those in need. We ask this in the name of Jesus, the one who came to be God with us. Amen.
Thank you, Hannah. Before we start this evening's meeting, members will have been saddened to hear about the passing of Councillor Buttery's husband, John. And I would like to give a minute's silence from members. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Is there anyone who would just like to say a few words? Councillor Walton.
It is with great sadness that I have to stand and pay respect to the passing of John, the husband of our dear friend and colleague, Julie Buttery. As we all know, the role of counsellor can be rewarding but quite demanding of time and commitment. So the support of all our husbands, wives, partners is very important to us in carrying out our duties as elected councillors. John and Julie celebrated their golden wedding earlier this year, and we send Julie, Paul, her son, and all her family and friends our condolences, thoughts and prayers at this very sad time for them all.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Councillor Alty.
I'd just like to echo the sentiments that Councillor Walton's just expressed and send our heartfelt condolences. It is always a sad time, and particularly poignant at this time of year.
Thank you for that. I'll start the meeting with some domestic arrangements. Due to the regulations surrounding voting, only those members physically present are able to vote. Mobile devices, please ensure that all electronic equipment is either on silent mode or switched off. There are no planned fire alarms, so if it does sound, please leave via the emergency exits. The meeting is being live streamed during open session for members of the public to watch. If you would like to speak, please press your microphone to let me know. When I invite you to speak, your microphone will turn red. Please do not obstruct your mouth to ensure that anyone lip reading can do so. If anyone is having issues, please let domestic democratic services know. Some points on procedure for members. Members asking a question have a maximum of 3 minutes, and they may ask one supplementary question directly related to the original question for not more than 2 minutes. A member who has spoken once on a motion may not speak again while it is being debated, except in specific circumstances. Members are also requested, where possible, to address the Mayor standing. Members are also reminded to make sure all comments or statements go through the Mayor. Also, individual members of the public will be restricted to speaking for a total of 5 minutes during the whole meeting. Before we start the meeting, can I welcome Councillor David Bollenberg and Councillor Joan Burrows to the council. So, welcome. I also believe that Louise Mattison, our Director of Finance, is due to retire in January, and I would like to thank Louise for her hard work and wish her a happy retirement. Can I have apologies for absence, please?
Mayor, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Julie Buttery, Councillor Margaret Smith, Councillor Phil Smith and Councillor Aniela Balinsky-Galder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. We also have an apology from Councillor Jane Bell.
Okay. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in the agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. We go to item 3, minutes of the meeting Wednesday, 25th of September 2024. This is for the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, September, and it is for a decision. And can I please ask the leader of the council, Councillor Jackie Alty, to propose that the minutes be approved?
Present these minutes before you for approval. I propose they're accepted. Okay.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Okay.
Sorry?
Mr. Hayes. It's not coming on.
I've just been through,
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
I've just been through information before, councillor, that said you stand when you speak to the mayor. So would you stand?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. For, against, and abstentions. That's been agreed. Thank you. We go to item 4 now, Mayor's announcements. Certainly the Mayoress and I have attended around 40 engagements since the last council meeting, and we've actually been bowled over by seeing all the fantastic community spirit and good work by so many people across South Ribble. It really is a privilege to meet so many committed and kind people and represent this great council. There are too many engagements to mention, but I would just like to highlight a few of them. I was proud to lead the borough in Remembrance Sunday commemorations at the Cenotaph and the service at St Andrew's Church in Leyland, followed by a ceremony in Lostock Hall. As it is part of my ward, it was also good to visit Sandry Hall for the Bluebird K7 70th anniversary. It was good welcoming His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent to South Ribble at the British Commercial Vehicle Museum. Attending the Britain in Bloom Awards and seeing that Leyland Bloomers received very well-deserved praise and recognition. Marking White Ribbon Day with partners, councillors and community groups to raise the profile of preventing violence against women and girls. Celebrating all the grassroots sports, volunteers and work in the borough at the South Ribble Sports Awards. And finally, the Worden Park bonfire and firework display was absolutely superb. And I'd like to thank those members attending my charity Christmas banquet a week on Friday. This is happening at the Civic Centre. We'd like to see as many members as possible. And if you haven't already booked, please could you do so? The cut-off date's going to be Friday. And as we're approaching Christmas, with the award-winning Leyland Band Spectacular at Leyland St Mary's Church on Sunday the 22nd. Again, you can book your place via my office. All proceeds are going to my charities. The council has been awarded the prestigious Armed Forces Covenant Gold Award, and I'd like to invite our Armed Forces champion, Councillor Matthew Farnworth, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Safe Ribble is home to some 3,600 veterans, which is around 5% of the population. At the beginning of this month, Safe Ribble Borough Council was proudly presented with the Ministry of Defence's Employer Recognition Scheme's Gold Award for our commitment to our armed forces. As a council's armed forces champion, I had the privilege of attending the presentation with our community development officer for the armed forces, Joanne Lloyd, at a ceremony at the historic Royal Liver building in Liverpool. Building on the silver award that we obtained thanks to my predecessor Alderman Forrest's work, we were able to successfully obtain the highest possible award this year, proudly joining the 193 Northwest organisations who hold the Gold Award. Over the past few years, this council has positively engaged with the armed forces community in the borough, such as meeting with veterans, uniformed organisations like the various cadets and air cadet squadrons, and we've engaged with residents and community groups to help with a number of issues such as housing, healthcare and employment. We've also attended the veterans cafes and even supported some organisations to participate in things like the Leyland Festival, as well as commemorating the Battle of Bamber Bridge. So on behalf of the council, I'd like to give particular thanks to the hard work to members of our communities team, in particular Jen Mullin, who's the Director of Communities and Leisure, and Joanne Lloyd, who's worked very hard to help deliver this award. So council has my word that will continue to provide support to all our armed forces communities in the coming years. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Farnworth. I believe you may have a present for me with a plaque that you're going to present me with for the council. Thank you. If we move to item 5, South Ribble 50th anniversary. Earlier this month, I was pleased to host a dinner to celebrate the 50th anniversary of South Ribble, the borough and the council. It was great to see friends, old and new, and reflect on this significant milestone. And all of us who have achieved over the last, all the things that we've achieved over the last half century. Whilst looking back, we also look to the future and all the opportunities we have in achieving our vision of a listening, engaging and responsive council that makes the best use of the resources to enable every person and community to thrive in a vibrant, green and fair borough. I would now like to show a specially commissioned video showing what a fantastic and vibrant borough we have. So I now invite leaders, if you got anything to say. Councillor Alty.
It's difficult to follow that. I feel like I should have a backing track, but on the understanding that I don't, I'll just walk you through what is a personal journey for me, for my life in South Ribble and what it means to me. So I'm sure others will sing the praises of its history, and particularly today on Lancashire Day. And I have no doubt that the beautiful scenery and structures will feature too. But for me, South Ribble has always been a place of opportunity. I've lived here for 48 of the last 64 years of my life. My mother and father saved and purchased their first home on Bristol Avenue in Farrington, the ward that I now serve. Having moved from Preston, I began attending Wellfield Secondary Modern, as it was. And I maintain I'm still recovering from the school uniform, which included brown and gold, which didn't serve anybody well. I saw my first Leyland Festival parade when I was 11, and I was enchanted. I hadn't seen anything that big or like it in all my time in Preston. And as an adult, I decorated trucks for the parade. I took part in them. And in 2015, I danced the route with Stone the Crows, but I was very thankful it didn't start off in Farrington as it had previously done. Worden Park, absolutely amazing. And it was, as a mum who was struggling to make ends meet, it was an absolute boon to live within walking distance and set the kids free at weekends to run in the waters, to throw themselves all over the place, come back pitch black and just muddied up. The privilege of having that on your doorstep is just amazing. And when I decided to go to college, I would cycle through Worden Park up the hill, and I was blessed by seeing squirrels as I was getting to the top. And I always thought, that's a reward. I've seen something really beautiful, and it invigorated me. As you can probably tell, I'm not really a cyclist at heart, but I had to get there somewhere. My fourth son was born when I lived on Moorland Avenue in Loster Cole. And following my journey to university, I enjoyed spending time in our local communities. When I began to understand just how diverse we are as a community and how much we can give to each other simply by being present within this area. In 2019, I was elected as ward councillor for Farrington East, and it felt like I've come full circle. Like you, I will have so many memories, it's hard to choose which are the best. But for me, Worden Park, with its squirrels, the waterway running through, and the cup of hot chocolate on a winter's day, will remain with me always. And it is right to celebrate the place. And it's right to celebrate everything that we can see that is beautiful, grand, or on the road to becoming beautiful and grand. But tonight, I'm going to celebrate the people too. And I consider myself fortunate to be a part of the South Ribble journey. Thank you.
Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I again was asked to speak on what South Ribble means to me, and I support all the things that our leader, Councillor Alty, has said. When I first became aware of South Ribble Borough Council when working as a very junior admin assistant in the Lancashire Library headquarters, and worked in the office where two senior officers were working on the reorganisation of the Palatine area of Lancashire to the new administrative Lancashire County Council. I knew the first South Ribble District Librarian, a lovely man, Tom Gillespie, whose headquarters were in Loster Cole. And when I moved from the town of Preston to South Ribble on my marriage in 1979, many of my friends and family asked, "Why are you moving across the river? To where? Loster Cole?" But that was just the start of myself and my family becoming part of this wonderful community that is South Ribble. I have lived, worked, brought up 3 children who attended the amazing schools in South Ribble, who all received degrees at university. I completely changed my career and gained a degree in education with the support of my late husband and families. and some wonderful people who have had a big influence on my life and on this council. I've taken part in numerous Lost Call carnivals and walked through the streets of Lost Call dressed as one of the seven dwarfs, and to name a few things. And I have also wandered around the Worden Park maze with my children, and now I'm taking my grandchildren. But some people who have been a big influence on my life and on this council are people like Ken Palmer. And when I became a governor at Our Lady in St Gerard's School in the early 1990s, he was chairman of the Board of Governors and understood the importance of being a good listener and keeping the meetings running well. Ken was leader of the council and for 21 years, and introduced me into being interested in local politics and how the council was run. He was an inspirational chairman and leader with a great knowledge and understanding of local issues, always putting South Ribble first. Then again, we've got Freeman Cliff Hughes, who again I met as a school governor, and his commitment to the residents of South Ribble, but especially Lost Call, to improve all our lives, employment and well-being, always asking what we can do for our residents, not what they can do for us, and serving all the residents in the borough for 36 years, remembering that our residents are our first priority. Then Councillor Margaret Smith, who was leader of the council for over 10 years and has served the residents of this borough for over 40 years. Her commitment and knowledge has been an inspiration to me and to others to try and emulate this as leader of the Conservative group in this council. But the highlight above all the others was having the honour with my late husband Graham of him being elected as mayor and me being his mayoress, the first citizens of this fantastic borough. And where you live is one of the greatest privileges that can be bestowed on any member of this council. Meeting residents from all areas of the borough, the children, the residents, the volunteers, the business people, the employers, the employees, who all make this borough the amazing place it is. And it's such a humbling and rewarding privilege that only those in this chamber who have experienced this honour know and can understand and comprehend. And I will treasure those memories for the rest of my life. Earlier this year, I was fortunate to be invited to attend some functions to meet the distinguished visitors from our twin town, Salzburg-Flensburg, from Germany, who were also celebrating 50 years anniversary of their formation, and I hope this friendship continues in the future. When I was given the honour of representing the residents of Farrington West, a place where I've lived for over 45 years, I remembered all the inspirational people in my life. And I thank everyone, past and present, members and officers, who have helped to build the reputation of a well-run and inspirational council, South Ribble, where employees are encouraged to build their businesses, employees are well paid, and residents have rewarding jobs. Residents can live and work and feel safe and send their children to exceptional schools, supported by a council who works to improve the lives and well-beings of all the residents who live in the borough, and long may it continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. No one else? Can I just is it not on? Sorry, that's my fault. I'll invite Councillor Howarth. I was waiting to see him on the screen. Sorry about that. Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You always get the short straw when you have to follow others, don't you? But in the absence of Councillor Mrs. Smith, I think on this council I probably go back further than anybody else does, because I first came onto the council in 1995. I wasn't born in South Ribble, and I haven't lived here as long as Councillor Alty or Councillor Walton. Well, I have lived here for 33 years, which is way more than half my lifetime. Oh, good. There are some mathematicians in the room. So I am an adopted son. But there are people here who haven't lived as long as I've lived in the borough, which I think is encouraging, that we have more young people getting involved in the council. But when I think back to when the borough was first formed in 1974, and 50 years later as to what's gone on this year. We had 2 general elections in 1994, and here we are 50 years later, we've had another one. And I was an 18-year-old in 1994, and I was one of the first 18-year-olds to ever vote in a general election, because I queued up at 7 o'clock in the morning and waited for that polling station to open, so I can claim to be one of the very first 18-year-olds, if not the first, to have cast a vote, and have been involved in local politics and local government ever since. I got involved here when I first moved into the borough, into Penwitham, where I've lived for the last 33 years, and I got a leaflet through my door which I thought was absolute rubbish, and then collared Tim Farron at the time and bemoaned to him, and it was a case of, well, if you think you can do better, get on with it, and I've been getting on with it ever since. But there's a plaque on the wall as you come in outside where Ron Smith actually opened this building, and Ron Smith was a Penwitham councillor in Howick, and he was still on the council up until 1999. So I'm probably one of the few people who goes back far enough to remember Ron Smith when he was deputy leader and the first mayor of this borough who actually opened the building. But I think Councillor Walton's completely right. Until you have the honour of serving as mayor, or being the consort or mayoress, you don't really appreciate just what a wide variety of wonderful things and wonderful places we have in South Ribble. I first had the privilege when Dorothy Foster, back in, I think it was 2006, was the mayor, and we used to take it in turns to be her consort. And I went on visits around various businesses in Leyland and really had my eyes opened. First of all, I've been eating pizzas for years and didn't realise where they came from. But we went to this one place where they were the leading producer of plastic cards. So your credit cards, your swipe cards, loyalty cards as they became, Leyland had the leading producer of those. And until you go out and see these places, you don't realise just what we've got here. And it is absolutely incredible. But likewise, what is the one thing about South Ribble that really makes me appreciate it more than anything? And when I was mayor, it was just meeting those volunteers, those salt of the earth people who go out and raise so much for charity and do so much for other people and never really ask for anything in return. And it was a privilege to be able to go and recognise them as mayor, because there are people who do so much and never receive any recognition at all. And we are so lucky to have those people within this borough. So what are my aspirations for the future? It's a bit unfortunate we're having this meeting tonight with all the speculation that's gone on over the weekend as to whether we may well even still be here in the future. But if we are, I think you, Mr. Mayor, have summed up what I was going to say, because within the corporate plan, there is that line within our corporate plan that says we remain committed to being a listening, engaging and responsive council. When I first came on, there wasn't any public question time. Members of the public couldn't attend meetings. In fact, we weren't even allowed to speak to officers. And what a massive culture shift there has been over 30 years since 1995, where you can now contact officers. They're incredibly helpful. You can have a professional relationship, and long may that last, where we have this working relationship, we recognise the public, and they're allowed to come in and participate. So, as I say, my aspirations for the future are exactly what it states in that corporate plan, and hopefully that is what we'll go on to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Councillor Pillinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a newcomer, so I thought if I can just say a couple of words on behalf of somebody who's new to the borough. I've only lived here for 5 years, going on 6. Lived in Exton before that, but because of my vocation, I've lived nowhere more than about 7 years in my adult life. And I came to Leyland to live in Moss Side as a runner. And I soon discovered the network of paths that cross this borough. I can run for miles with only crossing a road, but on what would in other places seem rural. Even through some of the most urban bits of the borough, there are back paths that you can take. I can go all the way from my home, which is close to the Lostock, right the way down to the Ribble in Penwitham in almost a straight line on footpaths that are covered by trees And I think they're one of the hidden gems of our borough, that we've got this network that we perhaps don't even sell enough in terms of our leisure facilities for people who want to do half marathons, as I used to, and such things. You don't have to plump around on pavements all the time in this borough. Within 20 yards of my home, I can be on a path along a river. I can run through woodland, and the woodland is there. I can get all the way round to Worden Park without hardly crossing a road. And it's a garden borough, if you like. My brother lives in Welwyn Garden City. I don't know whether this has been designed or whether it's by accident, but it is one of the gems of this borough, that you can get around almost the whole borough on back paths.
Thank you, Councillor Pillinger. Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I propose a motion proposed without notice in accordance with section 12 part 4A of the council procedure rules. The council notes that the 50th anniversary of South Ribble Borough Council, and thanks all the officers and members who have made positive contributions to the council and helped to provide services to South Ribble residents and businesses over the past 50 years. Council believes that local residents and businesses continue to be best served by the continuation of South Ribble Borough Council into the future. Council therefore resolves that South Ribble Borough Council should continue in its present form unless and until such time as the residents of South Ribble indicate their support for the replacement of South Ribble Borough Council by means of a public referendum.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Councillor Green, Michael Green.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I second the motion and reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Olsey.
Thank you for your motion. I'd like to see it in writing. I'd also like to see to have some time to look at it, examine it in terms of realistic outcome. And on that premise, I would suggest that we push it to another date to give us time to debate such a motion, because until the white paper is out, I'm not prepared to commit to something that may not even be possible. Thank you.
So, Councillor Olsey, you're proposing postpone this for another time. Have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Pillinger, seconded.
I think technically it's an adjournment of the item under section 12, is it, of the Constitution, under the closure motions, and it would allow us to bring it back at another time, but it would mean that both parts or every part of the council gets time to properly look at the business, and we get the time to also look at the white paper when it's published, whenever it's published. So I would second that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to second it, but I will echo some of the sentiments there. I'm really saddened by this, and I really would appeal to Councillor Walton and Councillor Green to just withdraw it. We've just had a video extolling the virtues and the wonderful aspects of South Ribble Borough Council. We've all just spoken to that. And then tagged onto the back of that, we have this pathetic political opportunism. So they can try and force a vote this evening and stick it in a leaflet. If there was ever a more inappropriate thing to do, I can't think of one more than that.
Councillor Michael Green.
Can I seek clarification, Mr. Mayor, because we've almost got into the debate, and I indicated I reserve the right to speak on the debate. So I'm not speaking in that capacity. I'm speaking on the basis of this motion being discussed this evening. Is that okay?
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Green, can I just check which way round you mean? Are you speaking to the closure motion, the request to adjourn, or are you looking to speak on the substantive motion that has been proposed and you've seconded?
It's probably both, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that's fine. I'll allow you to speak then in that respect.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. On that basis, I'll speak on the full matters, if that's helpful. Okay, so we've just seen a video and we've been reminded of some of the great achievements which have taken place in South Ribble. Not all because of this council, it has to be said, but a lot of them by working in partnership with this council, and we can all be truly proud of that. We, as South Ribble residents and South Ribble members, and speaking personally, 22 years of service to this council, I am tremendously proud of South Ribble as a borough. We have a proud history, we have successful businesses, we have wonderful communities, a collection of towns and villages that we can all be proud of, all of which have unique identities, but all of which were brought together and are served by this council. We have so much to be proud of in our past, but we also have a bright future, and the video alluded to some of that. A bright future that we can all be proud of, whether we live in Moss Side, Farrington, New Longton, Samlesbury, Gloucester, wherever in the borough. We all have a bright future that we can look forward to. We've got new developments coming on board. In my area, the Test Track development, which is a big housing development and the mixed-use site for employment as well. We've got the second home of Lancashire County Cricket Club that's coming into South Ribble. We've got the Enterprise Zone. We've got the Cyber Centre being created on the border of South Ribble and Ribble Valley. And we can be proud of South Ribble Borough Council, what we've achieved as councillors, how we've served our residents in good times and in bad times. And this council has faced some bad times, times in the past when industry has collapsed and the likes of Leyland Motors, that a lot of people were made redundant at the time. This council played a big role in helping to boost the economy moving forwards. Recently, during the pandemic, this council played a significant role in helping our residents, and that continues. We can all be proud of that, cross-party, Labour, Lib Dem, Conservative. we've all achieved so much under various different leaders as well at the council. And it's on that basis, Mr. Mayor, that I do think that the council should continue, and I support the motion which Councillor Walton has put forward this evening, which is very clear. I think the residents of South Ribble would support that feeling as well. They are proud of the council. They might complain from time to time that the council could do things better, and we'd all like the council to do things better. But in the main, they will be supportive of South Ribble Borough Council. And certainly, they wouldn't want the council to be broken up without being consulted on that and consulted on that in a proper way. Councillor Howarth makes reference to some very good points in the documents that are before us later on the agenda this evening, that this council is a listening council. It's a council which engages. It's a council which responds. And that's the sole purpose of this motion before us this evening, is to say we believe that South Ribble Borough Council should continue into the future. Who knows, maybe for another 50 years or even longer. And it should continue to serve the residents of those towns and villages that we've served for the last 50 years to the best of our possible ability. But if and when at some point a proposal comes forward to change the local government structure and to do things differently, that should be consulted properly, fully, with the residents of South Ribble, and they should all be given their clear democratic say by means of a referendum. And if the residents of South Ribble, all those towns and villages, tell us that they would like to disestablish South Ribble Borough Council and move to a new structure of local government, whatever that may be, we as councillors have a duty to listen to that and to respond and to enact their wishes. And that is the purpose of Councillor Walton's motion. Absolutely nothing else this evening. I'm fully supportive of it, and I do think the council should support that. To say that this is premature and that this doesn't need to be discussed, I would take the contrary view. The motion is perfectly permissible. It's there in section 12 of the standing orders 4A. Any motion arising out of consideration of an item on the agenda. Well, the item on the agenda is the 50 years of South Ribble. And the video shows the past 50 years and it looks to the future. So this is absolutely relevant to the future of this borough, and it needs to be considered because we know that moves are afoot to look at different options, and we know that moves are afoot from the leader of this council to look at different options, and that may well be considered in the fullness of time. But that's why this motion is here this evening, because we need to give some confidence to the residents who, in many cases, rely on support and services provided by this council, to give them that reassurance that their council is going to be here for the future, unless and until they determine that they want something else to replace it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Matthew Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for those in the Labour group who sometimes mock me for my lack of stature, can I assure everybody I am standing up? Mr. Mayor, I thought the move to adjourn had been moved and seconded, so I presume we would now be debating whether we moved to adjourn the item until a future meeting. It's very decent of you to allow Councillor Green to wax lyrical about the original proposal, but I didn't think we were discussing that anymore. In view of the fact that the move to adjourn has been moved and has been seconded, I'd like to move that we move to the vote.
Okay, a couple of things arising, members. Councillor Green cited the provision in the Constitution, which he's relying on. The full text of that section here is that the following motions and amendments may be moved without notice. Any motion arising out of consideration of an item on the agenda, but the motion must be relevant to that item and must not introduce any new subject. The other matter, just to address Councillor Tomlinson's point, is that in dealing with closure motions, there is the provision that enables the initial proposer of the original motion to speak prior to the vote. It wasn't the vote, but we're treating that as that step. Okay, so we would have been moving to the vote in any event. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that. So we are going to move to the vote then.
Yeah. So the proposal is that the substantive notice, motion without notice, which was read out by Councillor Walton, the consideration of that will be adjourned to a future meeting. The proposal is by Councillor Alty. I believe that this will be after the production of the white paper to provide some certainty as to the framework of the debate.
Okay, then can we move to the vote? Okay, that's been carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can we move on to item 6, which is for noting? Can I please ask the Leader of the Council, Jackie Alty, to present the report?
Thank you. You can see from the paper that we've been very busy as Cabinet, and we've produced some good decisions, and I'd just like to propose that this is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Questions from members of the council? Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to speak to a couple of items that are on the report from the meeting on the 16th of October. And I would be somewhat surprised if nobody else rises to mention the Stannyfield Lane crossing. I'm fully aware that members have campaigned for this for quite a number of years, but it does concern me that we're now going down this, what I consider a slippery slope in providing funding for Lancashire County Council, because it is their responsibility. It's not the responsibility of South Ribble Borough Council, and it's not an insignificant amount of money. Now, there well may be a very good reason and a good argument for having a crossing there, although that argument doesn't appear to be in the feasibility that went in the report, where it states there are no current up-to-date traffic counts. Therefore, based on previous counts, an 85 percentile speed of 35 miles per hour has been assumed. There's no evidence of what the speeds are on that road at all. There have been 2 collisions in the past 5 years within a 100-metre radius. There's probably been 2 collisions at the Priory Lane crossroads in Penwortham in the last 5 weeks. So I now wonder whether, because this has been an item brought forward by that particular community hub as a priority, whether £70,000 is now going to be allocated to all the other community hubs, because our community hub has brought forward concerns about speeding traffic and the dangers to our residents. We put 2 bids in for SPIDs for the Penwortham area to the Boost Fund, both of which have been turned down, although one is awaiting further information. Both ourselves and the Conservative group put forward amendments to the budget earlier this year, proposing much lesser sums than this to provide SPIDs in the borough and to tackle speeding. And of course, those were both rejected. So I wonder if the same consideration and funding is going to be available to the rest of the borough as it has been in this particular area. That said, I would also like to commend the Cabinet and commend the current administration for continuing with the play area refurbishments, something that we first agreed some 5 years ago when we set up a supply and confidence arrangement, and that was one of the things we agreed. And I'm pleased to see that eventually Margaret Road, which is the only playground left in Penwitham not to have been refurbished, and not through lack of wanting to, but because the flood defence system has prevented that from happening. But now that the flood defence works are coming to an end, it really is good to see that Margaret Road eventually is now going to get a new playground. It's probably the only one in the borough that doesn't have any fencing around it at the moment. The play area is well worn, the surface is well worn, and it's long overdue. So credit where credit's due. Pleased to see that that is now going to go ahead as one of the latest playgrounds to be refurbished.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Any other members of the council? Okay then, so that ends the discussion, and that report is noted. Thank you. Can we move on to the item 7, Governance Committee? This item is again for noting, and can I please ask the Chair of Governance, Councillor Wesley Roberts, to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to present the report of Governance Committee from the 24th of September. You'll note from the report that we put forward the recommendations for the council to endorse the financial regulations, which we'll look at for later in this meeting. And also we looked at the strategic risk register, or strategic risk review. And following that meeting, in line of a simultaneous approach from Governance Committee requesting to see it more frequently, and external audit asking us to look at it more frequently, we're going to now be looking at that on a biannual basis. And with that, I ask council to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. The speakers. Yeah, come in now, yeah. Councillor Peter Gabbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just seconding the report. So.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Just a second. Just seconding.
Right, thank you for that. That ends the discussion then, and the report is noted. Thank you. I move to item 8, please. That's a Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny Committee. And can I please ask the Chair of Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny, Councillor Pete Pillinger, to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to be able to bring this report to the council. For those who are following this meeting on the remote ways, the links to any documents are in the report, which can be found on the council website. I want to thank those who've appeared before the committee for their attendance, for the knowledge that they have shown in their answering of our questions. Sometimes when you're standing on your feet and answering something without notice of the question in advance, it can be quite difficult. And I want to particularly pick out Councillor Tomlinson, who stood in for the leader of the council and showed the breadth of his knowledge that comes from his long service to the council, and thank him for that. With that, I move the report.
Thank you for that. Is that seconded?
Mr. Mayor, and happy to second that report, and also to thank Councillor Pillinger for chairing the meeting very well on his first occasion of chairing, and look forward to supporting him moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Any members of the council want to speak on that report? No? Okay, then that's duly noted. Thank you. Item 9 is the Standards Committee. Can I please ask the Chair of Standards Committee, Councillor James Gleeson, to present the report?
Councillors, the report is presented to the members. Apologies. This report is presented to the members following its consideration and recommendation for approval by the Standards Committee on the 14th of November. That's the wrong one. During the meeting, members reviewed the draft social media protocol and recommended its adoption by Council. This recommendation was agreed upon and the social media protocol will be presented later on in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Is that seconded?
That report.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any members of the council? No. Okay then. Can we please note this report then? Thank you. We'll move on to item 10, urgent decisions. And this is for noting. Can I please ask the leader of the council, Councillor Jackie Olsey, to present the report?
Thank you, Mayor. The report is as it states. The contents are accurate and I would like to propose that this is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olsey. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Any questions from members of the council? No. Going to move on to item 11, which is the returning officer's report. This item again is for noting, and can I please ask the deputy returning officer, Sarah Bullock, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you just stated, this item is presented in my capacity as Deputy Returning Officer for the Borough to report to Council those who were duly elected at the recent by-elections. The by-elections were held on the 10th of October and the 24th of October, and the following persons were duly elected. For Bamber Bridge West Ward, David Bollenberg. For Middleforth Ward, Joan Burrows. Earlier this evening, councillors welcomed and congratulated the new members on their appointments, and councillors asked to note this report. Thank you.
Can I ask, are there any questions from members of the council? Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of the public? I don't think we do. Okay. No. Okay, then that report's been noted. Thank you. Can we move on to item 12, which is changes to committee appointments? This item is for a decision, and can I please ask the leader of the council, Jackie Olsey, to present the report?
Thank you, Mayor. The changes to committee appointments are as stated in the report. There are 3 of them, and I recommend this proposal tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that seconded? Is that seconded? Is he trying?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Any questions from members of the council? Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just to make one slight amendment. Unfortunately, after this report was published, I did note that Councillor Turner, if you approve her appointment as Community Hub Chair would be on the Climate Emergency Working Group as a matter of course, and she is our representative on that group. So if we could appoint myself instead of her as our nomination, that makes sense.
Is that acceptable to everyone? Yeah, does. Okay. You want to say something, Councillor Olty?
Yes, I'd just like to say that's quite acceptable. It's a good move. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we move to the vote then, please, for that to okay that? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you for that. And I now move to item 13, corporate strategy 2024-25. And this item is for decision. Can I please ask the leader of the council to present the report?
Thank you, Mayor. Within the report are lots of evidences of previous good practice, previous good outcomes, and as such, I'm not going to state those because you can probably highlight by exception the ones that you may want to question us on. However, the new corporate strategy for 2024 to 25, it does appear closely aligned with last year's document. From my election as council leader, I have invited members of all groups at various meetings and in person to meet with me and discuss ideas, concerns, barriers and limiting factors to the ongoing work of the council. I would like to thank all of those who have shared their thoughts with me, using the previous document as a resource. All ideas shared with me were incorporated. It may not be an immediate, it may be built in and nuanced further down the line, but the principles are there. I'm pleased to confirm the inclusion of a cultural strategy involving local communities and councillors working together to celebrate their local heritage and cultural expression. There will be an invitation to work cross-party, identifying opportunities to support the development of new and local business cooperatives. In the coming year, we will deliver Jubilee Gardens, an amazing holistic approach to independent living, reducing loneliness, supporting health and fostering a sense of well-being. If when you read this document, you can see opportunities that would further benefit our residents, I urge you to come and speak to me. I will consider any ideas that sit within our encompassing corporate strategy for 2024-25, which retains the thread of opportunities for everyone running through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olsey. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second that proposal. The leader of the council commented that people may recognise much of what is in this strategy, and I think that's to be commended, actually. There's a consistency to the strategy, and so when it does come for refresh, it's not our principles that are changing. We still want the same four things. We want an exemplary council, we want healthy and happy communities, opportunities for everyone, and clean and green neighbourhoods. They're the things that we said we wanted 5 years ago when we took over this council, and they're the things we still want today. So this refresh, it maintains those priorities whilst looking at the opportunities that arise as time goes by, and you've seen some of those outlined in the document. I would like to commend the leader on her openness on this. She stated more than once she's prepared to listen to any members and use the word cross-party who want to contribute to this. And I do hope that members of other parties who have ideas about what should be in this have taken up that opportunity and spoken to the leader. It's a sound document. It's well written. I commend the officers who've taken the time to bring it to council, and I'm happy to second it for adoption. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Are there any questions from members of the council? Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The corporate strategy refresh includes many good projects to improve many of the areas of the borough and supporting the most vulnerable residents, developing skills to meet a workforce demands and improve the health and well-being of all our residents. But we do have serious concerns over some of the targets set in the refresh. Target setting percentages should be increased to inspire aspiration and improve the standards of the services provided for all our residents. Our residents expect the provision of the best services in the borough, not a minimum standard. Targets should always be stretching and inspiring to push aspiration and exceptional services, not setting for the average by never increasing the important targets required to improve services. The results of the recent residents' survey, which I'm afraid were not very good, as only 73% of the residents who responded to the survey were satisfied with their local area as a place to live, compared with 85% in 2021, and only 11% of respondents agreed that they could influence decisions made about their local issues. And 52% of respondents were only satisfied with the way South Ribble Borough Council was running things. Does this indicate South Ribble Borough Council is succeeding and as an exemplary council? The removal of the indicators from the corporate indicator list for the reporting of incoming calls to the contact centre answered with an average time of 5 minutes, but concentrating on the performance of the overall customer experience, reporting on satisfaction levels and complaints rather than the call waiting times. Has this been removed to disguise the struggling performance of this particular service, which many of our residents do complain about? In future reports, we would appreciate more factual information on the key performance indicators and tracked and updated so that we can see the improvements to the services provided, or if there are no improvements, whether the processes are being implemented to improve the services and not reducing the targets so that they can be more easily achieved. And I propose tonight an amendment to the report of, which I hope will be accepted. 30% of people who feel involved in the local area and decision making up from 11%. 20 improvements to park and open spaces from the 5, which could include even just small improvements. And the percentage of households living in fuel policy will be in the bottom third of the North West Local Authority statistics. So I propose that these will be accepted tonight as amendments to the report.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Leaving note that amendment down. Yep.
It's been emailed to me.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to refer to item 8 of the agenda, 13 on corporate strategy, and it's with regards to the comments that Music in the Park was delivered as a successful outcome. I'd just like to make some observations about that statement because I am a member of the governance committee, and in May 24, just a couple of weeks before the Music in the Park was held, we were presented with the internal events audit report. Now, that audit report highlighted some pretty critical issues about the way Music in the Park has been run. Now, I will say that actions were put in place in that report. So obviously we are 4 or 5 months later on from that. But the actions were put in place to address some major concerns and issues. And I'll give you a couple of examples of some of those major concerns and issues. Our internal audit team found that there was a failure to ensure that contractors, traders had undertaken safe working practices and were not adequately insured, meaning that the council will be held liable for costs regards to damages or injuries that occurred. The internal audit report also found about Music in the Park there is a lack of documentary evidence to provide assurance that robust checks are in place during the event, including health and safety checks. A security plan was available for Music in the Park, detailing the necessary arrangements that will be put in place on the day. However, the only copy available within the file, as sent to the events team, was sent to the events team leader on the morning before the event was due to take place. There was also findings that there were no evidence of emails, agendas or minutes of information being provided to ESAG to facilitate the safe management of the event. And finally, another big hitter for me was as budgets are being consistently overspent for Music in the Park, it was imperative that there were budgetary management processes in place to identify budgets when they're insufficient and where overspends were occurring. So, as I said, this internal audit report was presented to us a couple of weeks before Music in the Park took place, but there is some critical issues there, which leads me to question just how successful the outcome was for Music in the Park. Yeah, a lot of people attend, but I think we had some management shortfalls. And of course, the biggest gripe that we've got, which you know about because I brought this up last year, was that event is seriously losing money for the council. And I believe that the one that was held this year lost in excess of £100,000, and this cannot continue to happen. So thank you for allowing me to have those observations.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Can I speak, Councillor Farnworth?
Thank you, Matt. I just want to say to Councillor Walton regarding the things that she said. I mean, you can quote the facts and figures all you want, but as an administration, I'm really proud to say that we get things done, and no one can certainly deny that. We've been over the survey that you referred to time and time again, and I quite recall it was brought before Cabinet, so people have had plenty of opportunities to flag that. Certainly for me, it's about delivering for Safe Ribble and delivering actual physical results for our residents. As for Councillor Turner, as a new Cabinet member responsible for the project, I'll certainly try to look into some of the concerns that you've raised. We've said repeatedly that Music in the Park is a 5-year plan. Next year will be year 4. So, you know, we are hopeful that we can bring in some results, and certainly on the day, you know, I went to to Music in the Park this year, and it was a resounding success. I just want to say, in terms of the corporate strategy, that I'm really proud to see this new one, which again is an extension and update of our commitments that we made when we were given a clear mandate from the people of Safe Ribble to deliver last year. We've already committed to refurbish things like our leisure centres. We've built the Safe Ribble Wellbeing Centre and seen a successful launch of our social prescribing service and delivered Music in the Park. In our new corporate strategy, I'm pleased to see that we've got a more rounded and complete commitment to the borough by delivering a cultural strategy. And I just want to echo what Councillor Alty said. It's something which my fellow councillor for 7 Stars, Jane Bell, has been advocating for a number of years. So I just want to thank members of the Scrutiny Subcommittee on Culture for providing the basis of this, and members can have my assurance that as a Cabinet member responsible, I'll be seeking to work cross-party for this council for both our residents and communities. It's also pleasing to see an emphasis on housing and homelessness, and particularly the work that Councillor Williams and the housing subcommittee, scrutiny subcommittee have made. It's a major issue over the past few years, and as a council, we need to help the most people who most need it. I was delighted also, and again in reference to Councillor Walton's comments, to see our commitment to developing a participatory democracy project. So hopefully that will create a bridge between the council and our residents and offer another way to contribute to our local communities and projects. And finally, we've got a commitment to look at youth provision. Yeah, some might say that it's not a statutory duty of this borough council, but let's be honest, neither was the social prescribing service, and look how much of an impact that's had. So to me, it's a crying indictment of the failures of the upper tier authority, and we really need to look into this for our young people.
Thank you, Councillor Farnworth. Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, I commend much of what's in this strategy, and particularly the cultural strategy. It was myself that raised this as a task group for scrutiny. You don't need to thank me. But there is one particular item I would like to question, and I don't know if we can get the answers tonight, or maybe an email would suffice. But if I can go to page 41 of the strategy and create the infrastructure for weekly food waste collections, because it does concern me as to what the cost of this may well be. I'm not sure that we know what people are doing with food waste now, and I appreciate that this is something that's coming down from central government, and we're being told we're going to have to do this. But I wonder how many people are putting the food waste in the black bin anyway, or are putting it in the brown bin because they think you still can. But perhaps the cost implication of us having to provide all the containers to do this, and then that's yet another container people have to find storage for. Is there any assistance, financial support coming from central government for this, as we are being told to actually do it? And hopefully you're going to give me the answers now.
Yeah. Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Howarth, there's money coming from the government under new burdens that covers the cost of the containers. We have no option but to do this. So it also covers the cost of the vehicles, although as yet it doesn't fully cover the cost of the vehicles. But there will be extra burdens on us, and that is being funded mainly in full. I can give you the full figures in that at a later date if you're interested.
Thank you for that. Councillor George Rea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just raising to second Councillor Walton's amendment. I agree. I think there's an awful lot of good stuff in here. If we're really honest, I think a lot of this would look very similar no matter what colour of administration this was. This is a good corporate strategy. However, I do think in a few areas we are not looking like an exemplary council. We look like we are happy to be an average council. That's why I'm supporting, seconding Councillor Walton's amendment, just as a friendly shot across the bows, if you like, from the Conservative group, that we can do a little bit better, I think. And I'd ask Councillor Walty to consider in that spirit, taking on board one or two of our comments. Let's tighten up our targets and let's see where we can get to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to echo, first of all, Matthew, Councillor Farnworth's comments about homelessness and also affordable housing. Putting this on the agenda is something I wanted as a result, as part of the scrutiny review that we did, and to actually see it come through is absolutely brilliant. We need more affordable homes in this borough, and properly affordable, regardless of wherever they come from. Also, a lot of this corporate strategy talks about outcomes, and you know, we're talking about calls being answered. In my professional career, I worked in contact centre planning and workflow and targets for the last 30 years, and we are moving away from this type of answer within X number of seconds. You might be answered within 10 seconds, but do you get the outcome that you want? No. What's most important is the actual outcome that you get. And obviously monitoring outcome and the quality of outcome is far more important. So that's the reason why I fully support the removal of that target. What we should be focusing on is outcomes for our residents rather than obligatory targets that mean nothing to the residents of this borough.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Alty.
Thank you, Mayor. In response to Councillor Walton, I genuinely do not believe that you could in any way, shape or form accuse our administration of being anything other than aspirational. When you play it safe, things go along smoothly. When you try to better, when you increase optimism, when you increase demand and expectation, that's when you get the negative feedbacks, because as you increase all those things, it outstretches what you can actually deliver. But I wouldn't hold back. I would still go with an aspirational model. So I would reject that out of hand. Also, I would say that our targets, whether you consider them appropriate or not, will be based on realistic expectations. In terms of, we will not design something that will ultimately fail. We will design something to build in a measure of opportunity and success. Associated with that is always risk, but we will deal with that as we get to it. As we work through the different processes, on the one hand, we're being accused of not being adventurous enough, and on the other, we're being accused of, oh, it's a bit too much, and actually, we need to nail those figures. From my perspective, looking at targets that relate to timings on a phone doesn't give us meaningful information. If I make a phone call to you and halfway through that phone call, I begin to cry or I get shouty or I need more information and you cannot provide it, I'm still tying you up. That doesn't mean that somebody else is waiting inappropriately. It means I need to deal with you first. And we can never factor out the changing context of every phone call. We can never factor out the changing context of a national, a regional, or a local demand for services that's been generated by fear within a community. We can never factor those things out. Variables are part of life. So we deal with them as they come up. I have found it an unhelpful measure. In the old days, before there were computers and you had the little switchboards, and yes, you would run to answer it and do all those things, and it would be a click of a switch and they'd go to another department. We now have services that deliver something on a holistic level with a single point of access, so people don't have to repeat their tragic stories over and over again. And because we do that with a humane intent, yes, some of the numbers will look skewed, but that's not the outcome. The outcome is the person that you are dealing with at that time gets a meaningful service. So I don't accept that premise either. In terms of, Councillor Turner's issues were dealt with previously. I'm not going to accept the amendment. I don't believe there's grounds for it. I believe we have presented an honest face, and if the outcomes worsen on the information, the meaningful information that we gather, then we will review it. But I'm not changing this document. It's written with honesty and integrity to give our residents the best possible outcome at this moment in time. And I've heard bandied about that we maybe aren't particularly good with figures, or maybe aren't particularly good with money. I would say, actually, that's not true. and I think we've got evidence to show it. So I am going to reject. From my perspective, I'm not going to accept an amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Alty. Come to the end of the debate now. We do have an amendment. Could you read the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. So if members will consider page 43 of the agenda, paragraph 38, there is a table. The first amendment is on the last box of the blue block relating to the percentage of people who feel involved in the local area and decision making. The proposal is to amend that from 11% to 30%. The next proposal of the group is in the green block. And it's the first box in that table, and that's to amend the number of improvements to parks and open spaces from 5 to 20. And then the final amendment is the third box in the green block, which is the percentage of households living in fuel poverty. The proposal is to amend that target to be in the bottom third of the northwest.
Okay, thank you for that. So everybody clear on what the amendment is? Can we now go to the vote? Okay, the amendment's been lost. Can we move to the substantive now?
Yeah, we'll move straight to the substantive.
We'll move straight to the substantive, please. Okay, that's been carried. Thank you for that. I believe item 14 has been withdrawn. Is that correct? Thank you. Can we move to item 15, which is the formal revocation of the Pemberton AGMA? And this item is for decision. And can I please ask the Cabinet Member for Environment and Street Scene, Councillor Kath Unsworth, to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Council's being asked to revoke the Pemberton Air Quality Management Area. Members might recall that the new air quality strategy and the updated action plan were unanimously approved and adopted at full council on the 25th of September. That report included data for the Pemberton Air Quality Management Area, which showed that the nitrogen dioxide levels in that area were continually below the national objectives. This was due to the changes in the road layout. The report also added that the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, had formally approved the request to revoke the Pemberton AQA MA in 2023. So following our annual report to DEFRA, they've recommended that the AQMA order is revoked. But as this order was formally approved by the Council in July 2005, the order needs to be formally revoked. This means the area will still be monitored. It's just that we don't need to report it as an AQMA, area. So I'm asking council for that formal approval to revoke the order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, councillor Halsey. Any questions from members of the council? Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This junction actually straddles Harricombe Priory and Broad Oak, so it's within the wards of the members sitting here. As somebody, I can remember when traffic used to come through Penwortham, starting at the Hutton roundabout and continuing on into Preston. And I used to take my car to be serviced around the Anchor roundabout, and I could beat the number 2 bus back home. That's how bad the traffic was. Since the bypass, that's clearly drastically reduced. And as somebody who can be found on occasion imbibing the produce of the hop outside certain establishments near that junction, I can very much say that you can sit outside and breathe freely, and the air quality is vastly improved from what it used to be. I just do have a question though, because on the chart of the trend data, and Councillor Unsworth did say that the monitoring is going to continue, but the AQMA for the Penwortham AQMA, the Causey 233 Leyland Road, Broad Oak Drive, which I presume is Broad Oak Lane, aren't within that AQMA. So I presume that the monitoring in those areas is going to continue, and I would assume that on the Causey in particular, it's quite vital that it does, because now that the cross link road is opened up, the traffic going through there is probably not a million miles away from what it used to be like on Liverpool Road. So if you could confirm that that is going to continue, even though we are going to remove the AQMA from Penwortham.
Yes, I can confirm that.
Can we go through the chair, please, before we respond? Thank you. Councillor Walton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this is a good news story, and the building of the Penwortham bypass to reduce traffic from Liverpool Road in the centre of Penwortham has had a real positive effect on the air quality in the area of Penwortham. So hopefully when the A582 is dualled in the future, this will have such an impact on other areas in the borough to improve air quality, like in Loster Call and everywhere. So this is a start of something good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Are there any questions from any members of the council? Any other questions, should I say? Okay. Can we go to the vote, please? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you. Move on to item 16, climate change, the 5-year review. This item is for noting, and whilst we are reviewing the last 5 years, I think it's prudent to acknowledge that the hard work undertaken by our former councillor Sue Jones as the cabinet member for environment at the time, and also of councillor Ken Jones, who was the lead member for climate change. Can I please ask cabinet member for environment and street scene, councillor Unsworth, to present the report.
Thank you again, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Jo Beeman for her hard work in producing this excellent report that reflects on the achievements made by the council since declaring the emergency in the climate in 2019. This work was pioneered by the Emergency Task Group, which was proposed and led, as you mentioned, by Councillor Ken Jones, who at the time knew he had very little time left. These words, which are a Greek proverb, were spoken at his funeral by Councillor Trafford and written on two of the memory benches, one of which is in Leyland. Society only grows when old men plant trees in whose shade they will never sit. So that work, initiated by Ken, has been carried on enthusiastically and ably by Councillor Keith Martin. As he's been involved in this work much longer than I have, I'm sure he'll do a better job of outlining the achievements mentioned in the report. I propose it is and recommend to Council that we recognise these achievements and plan for the next 6 years to 2030. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Second that, Mr. Mayor. Can I just make a statement as well? While
Certainly.
we're here? Okay, in 2019, South Ribble declared an emergency, climate emergency proposed by, as alluded to, the late councillor, Ken Jones. Sadly, Ken knew that he had limited time and worked to plant the seeds of the policy of which we are now, which our offspring will benefit from. Since then, we have together, through the Climate Emergency Task Group, made some significant steps in creating a better environment, with plans including the Climate Emergency Action Plan, the single-use plastics, which was done by the Deputy Mayor in his time. So I got a cold, so I'm having to sniff a bit. The biodiversity strategy and the biodiversity action plan, air quality submissions, greenhouse gas reports, the hedgehog highways by the two lovely councillors behind me. We promoted an active travel team to try and get young people and old people to get on their bikes, basically. So we obviously celebrate the new cycle lanes, and we've been told there's some more coming. We also monitor air quality, that's been alluded to, and obviously we've taken away now the air quality management area on Cop Lane Junction with Liverpool Road, the former A59. Some of our younger residents are part of the Climate Emergency Task Group by invite, and they have a free hand in putting their stuff across, which is what they should do, because they're the ones who's got to live after we do. Together we planted over 173,000 trees, which is more than one per resident, and replaced those that have passed away, sadly, with new ones, which aren't counted in these. We've also given away over 36,000 trees to residents. We started to decarb our buildings. It was a difficult task, never done anything like this before, with punitive timescales introduced by the government. We did most of that. An opportunity to learn on that, I think, going forward. The community hubs have made the contribution and will no doubt look to keep that up. So we look forward to seeing chairs at the next hub meet, at the next climate emergency meeting. All are invited. We have a number of EV chargers, electric vehicle chargers in the borough, and we have another 19 planned for next year. Planning has helped, and we'd like to thank the department for their work in helping us to achieve our targets. We continue to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels through the council, so it's with fuels and things like that we do, more economical vehicles, electric vehicles. Waste is still a problem. We keep buying it and then paying for throwing it away. You probably heard me say that many times, but we still do it. So it'll always be a problem until we learn not to buy rubbish. The Youth Council have had a place at the CE Task Group, along with other groups such as Diggy Sticks and Guardians of Nature. Our younger residents have been able to take part in that activities. There is still much to do to get our aspirational target, but we are well on the way. The trees we have planted will provide shade for people we do not know. That is a sign of a good society. We need to appreciate the visions of Councillor Ken had, and thank the officers, those former officers, Neil and Mel, and Joe and Jennifer, for their support with us to get us to where we are now. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Are there any other members of the council wanting to speak? Councillor Pillinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. 40 years ago, I was working in Sri Lanka for the Methodist Church. Across the ocean, a short away from Sri Lanka are the Maldives. The highest point above sea level is 6 foot. A sea level rise of a little over 2 foot will take away their fresh water. And even 40 years ago, that nation was buying land elsewhere in the world to move its population because they could see what was coming. When I came back to Britain, I did an Open University degree, one of Harold Wilson's great geniuses, which was basically environmental science, because I had seen what is happening, and it affects the poorest nations in the world as much as it affects us. I am dismayed that the reports that were put out in parallel to the recent COP indicate that we will miss the 1.5 degree target, that we may miss the 2 degree target, and that we are on the cusp of getting towards a 2.5 degree temperature rise. You have seen across the world the weather systems that, with the increase of energy in them, become more violent. I was in Spain this summer when we had 2 centimetre hailstones coming down on us. We saw what happened in Valencia, in our own country. We've seen the flooding in other places. I'm proud to be part of a council, elected to this council, that has a good policy. But we must redouble our efforts for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, or this planet will not be worth living on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pillinger. Councillor Damien Bretherton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's very pleasing to see all the work we've done so far, and I can see what we have done has been good. But are we on track to render the borough carbon neutral by 2030, or should we be doing more? Is there anything more in the plans to achieve that target, and is it a realistic target? And by the way, how do we measure it? Who is the body that actually measures it to let us know that we've achieved it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bretherton. Councillor Alty.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to raise some of the other things that a lot of Councillor Martin and that committee's work goes on behind the scenes. People don't always see it. They can't see the relevance of it sometimes. And sometimes they've spent a long time getting stuff together, getting the evidence together in order to make changes. And part of the things that may not be evident at the moment may be in the part of building towards becoming a visible representation, something that can be measured. But what I would say is council officers here help every year with the school uniform bank. Our members help also, but that's another one of those hidden things. It flashes up, and there are so many things like that over the course of a year where our hubs are individually making a big difference. May not be fed into this, but they all count. So again, I'll say it again, anybody who has some ideas that want to contribute to improving any aspirations and any measures, please come see me. I'll happily listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. No more questions from the council? And ask if there's any questions from members of the public. No. Okay. So we're now at the end of that discussion, and please can we just note the report? Thank you. Apologies, Councillor Unsworth, did you want to come back before I cut you off? Apologies for that.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to respond to one or two of the questions that were asked, but mainly how we measure it. I'll have to get back to you because it's quite complicated how it's measured. But there is a system in place that I can get back to you and give you the full details of that. Are we on track? it's, we're trying and we're keeping trying. And I think I did a paper that I sent to your leader last about that. There are a couple of things coming online that might help us with that improve. We've got the food waste that's already been mentioned. Food waste does generate an awful lot of carbon. So we're hoping that will affect. And the other thing is, there's something called extended producer responsibility that's going to come online in the future, which is about those who create it deal with the waste. And we will actually get, in theory, we should get money in to help us to deal with that waste as well. So the supermarkets, the manufacturers aren't going to want to be giving us that money. So they're going to be looking at ways of reducing waste. We have got other plans as well that we can do more locally, but there are these big initiatives that should help us as well. For example, one of the more local ones is we're do it because the trees are now, we've planted as many trees as we can on our land. So we're now looking at pollinators so that the area, so we're still hopefully contributing to biodiversity that way and improving the environment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. We did ask the members of the public. I didn't get any response. So could we just note that report? Thank you. We move on to item 17, Governance Committee Annual Report. This is for noting. Can I please ask the Chair of the Governance Committee, Wesley Roberts, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to present the report of the Governance Committee Annual Report for 2023-24. As part of the SIPFA guidelines, it's best practice for governance committees to produce an annual report to evidence to full council what we've been doing as a committee to ensure that we're meeting our terms of reference and supporting governance arrangements in the organisation go from strength to strength. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank officers for the really thorough report that they put together and comprehensive report. I'd like to thank members past and present and also Councillor Sharples for his stewardship as chair in the first half of that year as on the committee. I just want to highlight one point before finishing, which is Governance Committee will soon be interviewing for an independent person to join the committee. The idea of this is to provide more independent, robust challenge to the committee and improve us as an organisation. So hopefully we will be appointing someone soon and coming with a report to council about that. With that, I ask Governance Committee to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Any questions from members of the council? No. Any questions from members of the public? No. Okay. Okay, can we note that report then? Thank you. Move to item 18, the review of financial regulations. And this item is for decision. Can I ask the Chair of Governance Committee, Wesley Roberts, to present the report?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's been a while since we met on this. So I rise to present the report to review the financial regulations. These have been reviewed by Governance Committee in the September meeting and approved to go forward to full council for their adoption. The financial regulations are rules that apply to members and officers within the organisation, and they are a real well, I'll move on to that in a minute, but there are no changes in the principles of the regulations. There's lots of changes which enhance the explanation of the regulations. We've added some detail to help officers apply them with more rigour. The key changes are highlighted from paragraph 12. It's a pleasure to present this report to ensure, and these are part of our constitution, which ensure a key control measure to ensure sound governance within the organisation, and therefore on behalf of the Governance Committee I recommend them to full council for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. council? No, any questions from members of the public? No. Okay, so we're now at the end of that debate. Can we go into the vote, please? Right, it's been unanimous. Thank you. Move to item 19, social media protocol, and this is for decision. And can I please ask the Chair of Standards, Councillor James Gleeson, to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this report is presented to members following its consideration and recommendation for approval by the Standards Committee on the 14th of November. Following changes to the Code of Conduct for members and the increasing use of social media, it was deemed necessary to review the social media protocol. To this end, a working group was established comprising of members from the Standards Committee, independent persons and the monitoring officer, all of whom have worked diligently to ensure the protocol is fit for purpose. Appendix C outlines the versions presented to the working group and to the Standards Committee, including a colour-coded document highlighting all the amendments. The final proposed social media protocol incorporating feedback and approved changes is included in Appendix A. Members are asked to please approve the draft social media protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rainsbury. Any questions from members of the council? Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we welcome the improvements and clarification of the social media protocol, which focuses on the importance of separating the important role as a councillor and posting on social media and acting as a member of the public. And of course, always remembering the 7 Northern principles of public life at all times.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Any other questions? No. Any members of the public? No. Can we go to the vote then, please? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move to item 20, which is questions to the Leader of the Council. Are there any questions from members of the Council? Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Interestingly, at item 14 on the agenda tonight, which was withdrawn, there is a map showing all the parished areas of the borough. Does the Leader agree with me that our town and parish councils play a major role in delivering events and activities that add to community cohesion and sense of belonging? And does she also agree with me that we wish to see them thrive and prosper well into the future?
Yes, I do.
Coming back, Councillor Howarth, yeah.
If I could follow up on that. National Insurance employers' contribution is rising by 1.2%, and the threshold at which employers will have to contribute to national insurance will be reduced to all employees earning over £5,000, while county and borough councillors will be compensated for revenue lost due to the national insurance rises. Town and parish councils will not receive any compensation from government despite employing numerous staff. This is estimated to cost town and parish councils approximately £10 million extra next year and will severely impact on their ability to deliver for our local communities. Will the leader therefore agree to write to the appropriate government ministers to champion the cause of our town and parish councils and urge that they are likewise compensated for the increase in employers' national insurance contributions?
Thank you. The answer again is yes. I've already written on behalf of some charities. I have no problem with asking for help there as well.
Thank you for that. Can we, Councillor Caleb Tomlinson, please?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Would the leader agree with me that describing our ageing population as economically inactive brings about a weight of burden upon the elderly within all of our communities that can be unbearable? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Tomlinson, I would. And just to illustrate that point, I have received a message from a resident, and I apologise for applying this because I'm sure Councillor Jane Bell would not consider herself either aged or economically inactive. But I would like to read the words of the resident because they speak quite eloquently of the contribution that anybody of any age can make. He writes, I've had quite a lot of correspondence with our ward councillor, Jane Bell, over several issues, and I've had many dealings with Jane over the years, particularly through Wade Hall Community Association, when I used to volunteer there with my recently deceased wife, who was a vice chairperson. When she sadly passed, Jane has been a stalwart and valued connection who holds a wealth of information and always supportive of our community, and has been an incredible help to my family, especially these past few years when losing my wife and my daughter who lives with me and her twin girls aged 3 were severely autistic and non-verbal. I will confirm at this point I have had permission, explicit permission, to share this. Jane has offered so much support and valued information even whilst having her own suffering. She is a fabulous counsellor and has been for many years, and I think she deserves credit and acknowledgement for her continued support, and I think she's an ideal mentor for Matthew, her co-counsellor of Seven Stars Ward. I think it's important to credit counsellors when they are so dedicated to their wards and the community. I all too often hear council and councillors being criticised unfairly, and in Jane's case, I have absolute praise for her in her role as ward councillor to Seven Stars and wished it to be known, as Jane has always supported my family and our community and provided valued information and advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alsey. Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last council meeting, the council requested that a letter from you should be sent to the local MPs and Chancellor Exchequer concerning the abolishing of the winter fuel allowance to all senior citizens except those who are eligible to claim pension credit. Could the leader inform the members of any response she has received to her very short letter asking them to consider the request?
Councillor Alsey.
I can confirm that I haven't received one as yet, and it was very short because it was exactly as requested. Thank you.
To come back, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Walton.
It's a different question.
Okay, I'll allow that.
It's come to my attention that I have seen a letter that's signed by the leader of this council and the leader of Chorley Council concerning the 3 districts of South Ribble, Chorley and West Lancashire working together to commission a unitary authority. Can the leader inform the members of this council when she received the mandate for this letter to be written on council-headed notepaper, when there has been no discussion or vote taken by this council for her to sanction such a decision, which could affect the future of this council and all our residents, who I am sure will, however, have very much to say over this issue when councillors elected by them to represent them, their wishes have not been consulted?
Councillor Alty.
I could say quite a few things about that. However, I will hold my peace on a good number of those until a later date. What I can tell you is I have neither ruled anything out nor ruled anything in. I have indicated an openness to consider all options which would benefit South Ribble's residents. And as such, I think that is what I'm expected to do.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bretherton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Referring to the letter that Councillor Walton alluded to, can I ask a question? Could the leader kindly indicate the standing order in the Constitution which gives her authority to unilaterally make the case for the council to be disestablished?
No, I can't cite that. What I can tell you is what I've just stated. I will do what it takes to get the best for our residents, and whether that suits me is beside the point. Whether that suits any of us is beside the point. I will do whatever it takes, and I will say that under the current arrangement, the district councils have no decision-making voice, and as such, any option is worth looking at.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. Green.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's on a similar topic, and I know Councillor Alty not being able to find the point in the Constitution that gives her the authority to act unilaterally. I couldn't find it either, but I'd seek advice from the monitoring officer after this meeting if there is such a clause contained within the Constitution. But referring to the position which Councillor Alty has made very clear as to what her preferred option is, and I don't know if she's consulted with. Clearly, we're not members on this side of the chamber. I don't know whether the Labour group members have been consulted. But can I just ask Councillor Alty, from what date did she form that view? Because a reference is made to confirming her earlier view. So I'm just wondering what date she actually formed the view that she now has, please, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alty.
The view that I will serve the residents as best I can and look at all options. I've always held that view. Having said that, I became aware of discussions earlier last week. I hadn't formed a view by that point on which direction, if any, I should take. I did form a view, and it's actually an established view, that anything that I need to do to support the residents and their future and have a voice of influence within any authority, I will do that. And as I've stated previously, that's whether it runs contrary to what I would like. I am clear I would prefer districts to stay. Do I believe that's likely, given that the voice at the table has been removed? No. So my options are open. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. Councillor Will King.
Thank you. Thank you. On a similar note, as leader of the Labour group, where in any of your leaflets which you distributed to secure Labour seats in the election and gain control of this authority, did you make it clear to residents of South Ribble that on your success you would disband the council which provides the services which they rely on?
Nowhere, because I don't intend to disband anything. I'm looking at options to support our residents. And given that this is a moving feast, that was delivered to us on a plate with massive restrictions to any influence, I will continue to look at options.
Thank you, Councillor Altree. Councillor Michael Green, I think you wanted to come back with a supplementary and I missed that, so my apologies.
No, that's okay, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for allowing me to come back. Councillor Altree, I'm just struggling, and I think we've had the conversation, and I'm generally supportive of your leadership and how you've brought some changes to this council. So I'm not trying to be awkward. I'm just trying to establish a position here. But in this letter that you've written, you make reference to confirming your earlier position. It appears that you didn't have an earlier position from what you've just said. So are you confirming the earlier position of the leader of another council, or are you confirming the earlier position of the former leader of this council, who's now an MP? But surely we are the 50 elected members, and I'm hoping that you would agree with me that we have a duty to act on the best interests of the residents of this council, and putting it bluntly, not the interests of any other council or the interests of any MP, whoever he or she may be. And whilst your earlier comment in the earlier debate about not wanting to form a view on whether we should ask the public for their consent before disbanding South Ribble and coming forward with some other structure, not being able to comment on that at this moment in time before we see the white paper, yet before we see the white paper, you've set out a position on behalf of this council which confirms a very clear position and a very clear desired path that you wish to take, and your preference is made crystal clear in that letter. Now, your preference may not come to pass because it probably wouldn't under any legislation which may come forward, but it sets out a clear direction. So surely it's time also to set out how long that has been the direction, and to set out that the public have a right to have their say and to be fully consulted. So do we get that assurance from you this evening, please?
Councillor Altree.
I'm not sure on the restrictions that I have on a discussion that I've had with the people who sat in on that meeting. When I find out the limitations of my ability to share information, I will come back to you. But I remain steadfast in saying all options are open. Would you ask me, would I prefer the residents to have a voice at a table, or would I prefer the residents to not have a voice at the table? I am going to say I would prefer them to have a voice. At this moment, that is not on the table from the CCA. I'm not going to go any further with that because we all know the reality of it. So to accuse me of kind of dissembling about whether or not I support one thing or another, I'm being perfectly frank with you. If there are different positions, different options that are positive for the residents of South Ribble, I will pursue them. It's not rubber stamped, it's not gold plated, sealed and delivered. It's looking at the options available. I will keep my options open. I can indicate a preference. That doesn't necessarily sign, seal and deliver anything. But I will check out what I'm allowed to speak about and what I'm not. And if I am, I will come back to you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Altree. I think we've exhausted that situation now. So we're going to move on to Councillor Joan Burrows, please.
Thank you. As the newly elected member for Middlefirth, could an update be provided on the corporate strategy under the headings Opportunities for Everyone? The content reads, by taking forward the actions in the master plan to improve the areas of Middlefirth, Kingsfold and Liverpool Road district centres. I also noted tonight under agenda item 13 that the areas have committed to them £2 million for this facelift. As many residents of Middlefirth are awaiting progress of this scheme, that's in the Kingsfold and Middlefirth trading areas, do you have a timescale for commencement of this work in these areas? And also, following the amount of work undertaken in the Liverpool Road locality, could I ask how much of the £2 million is left to be spent in Middleford and Kingsfold?
Councillor Halsey.
This is a question that could have been presented to me outside of this chamber, where I could have given you a full detailed report. I will come back to you with all the answers to those questions.
Thank you, Councillor Halsey. Councillor Lou Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask the leader a question on civility and politics. Would the leader agree we want and need to encourage a greater diversity in not only public office, but national and at local level? Robust debate and scrutiny are essential aspects of our democratic process. Coercion, anti-locution, intimidation and bullying should not have to be. Intimidation can make elected members feel they need to step down or put potential candidates off standing altogether. With women, people of diverse heritage, and those with disabilities suffering a disproportionate level of this behaviour. We all have a responsibility to challenge this, fulfilling our duty of preparing the way and welcoming others to come. Would the leader also agree that in the Constitution it says we have a responsibility to promote and maintain high standards of conduct among elected members? We must abide and be in compliance with the Equality Act of October 2010. I have gained consent this week from Kim Leadbeater, MP, MBE, who champions her late sister Jo Cox's Civility in Politics pledge. God rest her soul. The pledge reminds us to use a civil, constructive tone, reminding us to act with integrity, openness, honesty and compassion. It also reminds us to be respectful to others in our words and actions, even when we disagree. So today, Leader, I ask for your support. As Kim Leadbeater MP stated, she is more than happy for me to promote the Civility in Politics pledge and is delighted for us in South Ribble to engage in this very important message. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Pellinger. Okay, reply then.
Thank you, Mayor. I would promote actively the move towards anything that brings us to a more civil appreciation of one another. I think what is quite amusing is how incivility is demonstrated in a good many ways. And I would like to request at this point, just to say, absolutely, you have my full backing as council leader and anything that promotes civility within these chambers and responsibility for the words that we utter, not in a dismissive way. So sometimes we can find ourselves feeling aggrieved because we're put on the spot and we can respond in something less than a gracious way. And I don't think that's helpful. Just can I ask the council to put it on note that in future I will be asking for financial support for my knees that are going to keep going if I keep having to stand up and down at every council meeting at the rate that currently has been happening, because I don't think the NHS is in a position to sort me out. So thank you very much. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ross. I don't think I can't remember a leader having this many questions. So normally you would only get it once or twice. So I hope you can carry on doing that.
I'm sorry, Leader, to add to the number of questions. I hope this is topping and tailing in a way, because it involves that category of economically inactive. The hub that I'm part of will shortly be thanking volunteers for the contribution they make to our society here in South Ribble, which makes it, in this 50th year, such a great place to live. So many volunteers from all sections of our society, many of whom would be categorised as economically inactive if you value people just by how much they earn, rather than what they give. Would you agree?
Councillor Olsey, can I just say this is the last question? I have no more.
I have a written one here. Yes, I would agree.
No more from the council.
100%. Thank you. Yes, I would agree 100%.
I believe we have a possible question from Councillor Bell. Is that
Yes,
right?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say I apologise for not being there? And at this moment in time, I am sitting down, so I'm not even standing up for you. I'm glad I'm not there, because I would have been incredibly embarrassed by what our leader has just read out. But I'm also aware that there are a number of our councillors who would maybe classed as past it, who do valuable work across our borough. So I want to say thank you to them. Anybody who's over 60, I reckon, is doing a cracking job, because we've retired and then we put our experience and our love of community back into, in the widest sense, into our politics and into our community and our residents. And it's a really nice thing when somebody somewhere unexpectedly says thank you and sees our worth. So thank you to everybody. And I've been a bit poorly, but I do assure you I will get better and come and cause havoc again. So I'm really enjoying this meeting at home, because I can shout out and nobody can hear me. So enjoy the rest of the meeting. These questions are brilliant.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bell. No more questions from members of the council. I believe we have a question from a member of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would appreciate, actually, Mr. Mayor, if in addressing me, you've given me this title of alderman, and I would like to do the honour of returning it by answering to the title of alderman.
Okay, my apologies, Alderman Forrest.
I'm obliged, Mr. Mayor. The county have just informed all residents that they have permission to form a combined county authority with the other two local dignitaries, local unitaries, Blackpool and Blackburn with Darwin. This is described as being in partnership with district councils. What is the nature of this partnership, and what is your view of its effectiveness in attracting investment to Lancashire in general and South Ribble in particular, bearing in mind the lack of a mayor, Mr. and Mrs. Lancashire?
Councillor Olsey.
Thank you for your question, Alderman Forrest. Sorry, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Okay. As I indicated earlier, it is a moving feast. However, I did prepare an answer. So thank you for your question. The development of devolution in Lancashire has been going on for some time, and Alderman Forrest will be aware that the devolution deal that has been agreed and has led to the combined county authority is a model that focuses on the county council and unitary councils in Lancashire. There is no full role for district councils in the model, although district councils will be involved in a non-voting capacity across the CCA structure. While this is not the model South Ribble Borough Council would have favoured, as we believe that it would be better to have local areas directly represented, it is the model that is currently being implemented. That means that we have to seek to secure the best outcomes for South Ribble and Lancashire through the arrangement. The government have asked the CCA to develop options for the future governance models that could lead to more devolution of funding and powers to Lancashire, and I will continue to seek the best for South Ribble through that. We expect details about future devolution settlements to be included in the white paper on English devolution that is expected to be published imminently. Once we see the detail, we will be in a better position to understand the best approach to securing investment and powers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alty. No more questions for the leader. Can we move on to item 21, questions to cabinet members? And can we, questions to the deputy leader? Is Councillor Tomlinson going to take those, or does the leader want to take them? Okay, so basically, are there any questions for the deputy leader? The answer is no. So that's all right. Members of the public? No. Okay. Can we move on to questions for Cabinet Member Finance, Assets and Commercialisation? Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could the Cabinet Member advise Council as to what is the cost to the Council of their sponsorship of the Leyland Lights and Christmas festivities out there?
Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you. I'm always loath to answer questions off the top of my head. So I will have to get back to you with a specific answer. My understanding of the Leyland Light switch on is it's funded almost in its entirety by Leyland Town Team, who fundraise throughout the year. We support them with officer time around road closures and things like that, but I'm not aware that we actually put any cash towards the event. But as I say, I cannot confirm that absolutely, and I'm happy to get an explicit and complete answer at a later date.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. No other questions? Supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only asked the question because some time ago, Pemberton Community Hub actually purchased Christmas banners for the length of our main district centre on Liverpool Road. We paid for banner hangers to be erected on all of the lampposts along the district centre of Liverpool Road. They're still there. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to secure any assistance in actually getting them hung. So for the second year in succession, Liverpool Road, while Leyland is going to be lit up and everybody's going to be enjoying themselves, it's going to be pretty bleak along Liverpool Road in Pemberton because we can't seem to find a cherry picker or anybody to go up it to actually put those banners up.
Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, and I'm grateful for his second question because it gives me the chance to say all the Christmas trees that you see above the shops in Leyland are put up by volunteers from Leyland Town Team in their own time. I believe they went and did them last Sunday. And I don't suppose he is watching, but I would like to give a big shout out to Martin Carlin, a local business owner who is a joiner by trade, and I know that he does them himself every year. I do want to give Martin a special shout out because for the Jubilee, the VE celebrations and the Jubilee celebrations, he went out himself and put Union Jacks on every single one of those stanchions only to be criticised by some people because he put a couple of them upside down. Poor Martin, he really is doing his best, and actually he's a credit to the town, and I'm happy to say so tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. No more questions from the council. Any questions from members of the public? No. Okay, can I move on to questions for the Cabinet Member, Customer Services and Digital, Councillor Colin Sharples?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thank Mr. Lemon for his question and his continued feedback regarding the accessibility of our website. We take accessibility very seriously and strive to ensure that our services are usable by everyone, including those with disabilities. I can confirm that our website is compliant with current accessibility regulations, including the Equality Act 2020, which is mentioned in the letter. However, we recognise the importance of continuously improving and enhancing accessibility to meet the diverse needs of all our customers. In response to the feedback and as part of our commitment to inclusivity, we are in the process of implementing additional accessibility features using the Recite Me platform, and this will provide enhanced functionality, including tools such as text-to-speech, screen masking and translation options, among others. These features will be available on our website in the coming weeks. And I say to Ms. Lennon, we sincerely apologise for any inconvenience caused in the meantime and appreciate your patience as we work to make these improvements. And should you have any specific needs or require assistance accessing our website during this transition, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharples. Can we move on to questions for Cabinet Member, Economic Growth, Planning and Investment, Councillor Ian Watkins? Are there any Watkinson? Are there any questions for members from the council? No. Okay, I believe that we've received a question in advance from a member of the public. I just wanted to check, Councillor Watkinson, are you all right to stand this evening or are you struggling? And that is a genuine question. I'm not trying to be libelous.
I'll stay sat down, but thanks for asking.
You're okay to do it?
Yeah.
Fine. So I believe you're going to respond to that. Thank you.
I'm wondering if Alderman Forrest wants to ask his questions.
I thought you were going to do it this time.
I'm not sure actually now with this process whether it's actually worthwhile actually reading out these questions when you've all got them all in front of you. Maybe we ought to start just saying question 1, question 2 and 3 instead of having to read them out. But anyway, I shall read it out if you wish me to. If you remember at the last council, I was concerned about ensuring that new developments had proper drainage of surface water, and this is a further question arising from that. If I'm a builder proposing, say, a 20 to 30 house development, am I required to demonstrate to South Ribble Planning a modern surface water drainage system with outlets to the natural drainage? Can South Ribble make planning permission conditional on such a system? Can Lancashire County impose such a condition? In any event, does South Ribble have the expertise to approve such a system? Does the county have that expertise? We already know we have no obligation to consult United Utilities, but if we did, have they the facilities to advise? In the absence of any planning condition, does anybody have any means of enforcing compliance by this builder?
Thank you. Councillor Watkinson.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Alderman Forrest. I could write back with a full answer, but I do have a prepared response that I'll read for you. So the lead local flood authority, LLFA at Lancashire County Council, are the expert team at LCC that's responsible for managing local flood risk. Part of the planning process for such an application would require requesting comment from the LLFA as a statutory consultee. Their remit is to identify areas at risk of flooding from surface water and groundwater. They would review and approve the drainage plan submitted with the planning application and, as the experts, advise planning officers at South Ribble. I'm not pausing for a response there. I'm just, any conditions they request would be attached to planning permission and must be complied with. Moving on, there is a hierarchy in relation to drainage, which is set out in National Planning Policy Framework, and that hierarchy must be addressed and complied with in the information submitted for consideration. The first port of call for the removal of surface water is via infiltration. If that is not possible, then the developer would look towards watercourses, then the surface water sewer, highway drain or other drainage system, and the combined sewer is the last choice. United Utilities are consulted on planning applications on major schemes and schemes which affect their infrastructure, and they may also impose conditions which need to be complied with. Between the LLFA and United Utilities, and in other circumstances the Environment Agency, there is the expertise available to advise planning officers on matters relating to drainage of all types. Even if for some reason planning conditions are included on the decision notice, the developers will still have to comply with other statutory requirements, such as the Flood and Water Management Act 2010 and building regulations. Should there be a lack of drainage or flood management that leads to harm, then the affected parties may decide to seek legal recourse against the developer or landowner for negligence. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can we move on now to questions for Cabinet Member Culture, Community Wealth Building and Licensing, Councillor Matthew Farmer. Got Councillor Ian Watkinson. Do you want to ask a question? Yep.
There was a second question from Alderman Forrest, separate question.
All right, I'll allow you to that. Thank you.
Right, I wasn't sure whether that was appropriate to ask Mr. Mayor in the light of the withdrawal of the SIL item. I think 14 it was. Am I?
Well, I think with it being withdrawn, it's probably better that you don't ask it then.
I'm right.
Thank you. Okay, can we move to questions for the through it all again now? Through the Cabinet Culture, Community Wealth Building and Licensing, Councillor Matthew Farmer. Any questions for Councillor Farmer? No. Are there any questions from members of the public? No. We move to questions for Cabinet Member Leisure and Wellbeing, Councillor Claire Hunter. Councillor Michael Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Hunter, so it's something that you're not directly responsible for, so apologies in advance, but obviously there's been some concern with regard to the consequences of the government's budget that was approved recently. But I want to focus in particular on the primary care and GP practices. And in terms of your responsibility for wellbeing in the South Ribble footprint, I'm just wondering if you're picking up anecdotally any evidence of GP practices looking at reducing their numbers of staff or potentially even handing back their contracts to the NHS, because I see there is this concern being expressed at a regional and national level. I was on a meeting today, and there was a GP on that made it very clear that he was laying off 3 members of staff who are nurses, which obviously has an impact upon that particular community, and I'm concerned for the South Ribble community in that regard. So it was just to ask if you'd seen anything anecdotally, and if so, if it was worth us having a further conversation outside this meeting to see how we can look at this moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, that's a question I didn't expect. No, I've not. I've been involved in our strategy for our 10-year plan on the NHS, giving an opinion, but I've had nothing that's come into me suggesting anything like that. Obviously, if something does, then obviously we'll have a conversation, but no, nothing's come to me as yet.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Any no more questions from the council? Any questions from the members of the public? No. Can we move on to questions for Cabinet Member Environment and Street Scene, Councillor Kath Unsworth? Councillor Caleb Tomlinson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm just doing Councillor Howarth a favour, saving his knees. Because you've been up a few times as well tonight, haven't you, mate? So, firstly, thank you for your prompt action last week, where one of our residents in Bamber Bridge West got his bin replaced because 3 times his bins have been left in an inappropriate place and have been lifted by someone. So thanks for that. But my question is, do you agree with me that our friendly refuse collectors could do with a little staff training, friendly staff training? Thank
you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'll chat to you about what specific training you're thinking of, but thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Rea, George Rea.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make this a quick question because I think we're all hoping to go home quite soon, so don't expect a detailed answer. Really pleased to see that we're moving forward on new bins, potentially, or new household waste bins. Could you just, in 1 or 2 minutes, summarise what that's going to look like? My specific question as a South Ribble resident, as well as a South Ribble councillor, is, are we getting proper bins for our cardboard, or will we still be boxes for cardboard?
Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you. It's under review. I'm sure there will be changes, and I know that it would be a very popular move to have a wheelie bin for. There's loads more cardboard now than there used to be, thanks to Amazon. So yeah, there will be a review. It's not decided, but anything. I think when it comes to review, then everybody will be involved in that review because we all know what our residents want. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the consideration about my knees. Got me question now. Would the Cabinet Member please advise us to what is the policy of the Council on fly posting? Because at one time we had a zero tolerance to people openly advertising on areas of public realm, their services and so on and so forth. And I've noticed that recently there was a banner displayed for some months on fencing down at Penwitham Home advertising activities outside of the borough. And there's still a banner on the fence at the entrance to Pear Tree Park advertising Penwitham Live May 2024. So as a council, we're not necessarily setting the better example. So I just wonder if you might be able to pursue a more proactive approach.
Respond, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The answer to that is I don't actually know. But I will find out and I'll get back to you. But the last dealing I had with banners, it was actually an LCC issue, whether or not people could display them. Because I know somebody who asked for one in Leyland was refused by LCC. So, but I will find out. I don't know.
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth.
If I could just very quickly come back, thank you for that, and I look forward to your reply. But this isn't about people asking for permission. This is about people doing it without asking permission and on our property.
Councillor Unsworth.
We'll look into it.
Don't think we have any members of the public here anyway, so that would conclude that part of the agenda. I'm looking at any other business. I don't have any urgent items. So I'd just like to thank everyone here for your attendance this evening, and hopefully you can join me in the Paddock Room for some festive refreshments. I think we might need them after the 3 hours we've been here. And that being this being the last full council also before Christmas, I'd just like to take the opportunity to wish everyone here and all your families a very happy Christmas and prosperous New Year. So thank you for that. I now close the meeting.